Oh, it's now streaming live.
It's live.
It is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's very good. Thank you for confirming that with me. So 1 second, I'm just going to get everybody on the full screen here. So first and foremost, I would like to welcome everybody who has volunteered as a speaker for this wonderful event today. And you'll have a chance to introduce yourselves shortly. I'd also like to thank everybody who's taken the time to join us either via Zoom directly or to view this live on our Facebook page, The Light of the Animal Kingdom. And before we go any further, there's one of the speakers that was due to speak, in fact, actually potentially two other speakers that were due to speak, haven't been able to join us today because of, there you see, TeRangimarie. She's holding up a photograph here of Pat Brownwolf, who was due to speak today. Pat is 80 years old and she's recovering from an operation. And so she's not in a suitable state of health to join us. Thank you so much. I'd like to also mention Guy Red Owl, who also expressed a willingness and wish to speak in this event as well. He also has got to prioritize a hospital appointment. So I'd like to just take a moment to honor the spirit of both of these human beings and to send them love and healing from all of us here, first and foremost. So the purpose of our celebration on this winter solstice is to share an open discussion between our guest panelists about the spiritual sanctity of the animal kingdom and indeed the spirit of the natural world. The members, the friends of the Light of the Animal Kingdom are very strongly motivated to listen to various different people from various different traditions and cultures. Now, we want to encourage an open discussion and a sharing of information, a sharing of knowledge and wisdom and understanding from people from all different backgrounds, all different spiritual traditions. And so we're going to start off this evening with one of our first guest speaker this evening is Earl Charters. So Earl, I would like to hand over to you, please, for you to, first of all, introduce yourself briefly, and then I'm just going to pass to each of the speakers in turn, starting with yourself, please, Earl.
Hey, good morning in New Zealand, good evening in England. Earl Charters, Canadian First Nations hoop dancer, now living in New Zealand.
Thank you, Earl. And Pippa, please.
Hi there from a cold, rainy London. I am Pippa Rodger and I'm the Global Director of Communications for World Animal Protection.
Thank you very much, Pippa. TeRangimarie, please.
Yeah, tēnā korua, everybody. My name is Rangimarie Carter. I represent a number of nations, but live down here in Aotearoa. Yeah, so kia ora, good morning.
Thank you very much, TeRangimarie. And James Fearnley, please.
Hello, everybody from and North, just outside Whitby. Yeah, I've been involved for 35 years with the honey in one way or another. And yeah, I hope to be talking some more about that to you.
Thank you, James. And Elaine and Joe Duffy, please.
Hi, everyone. I'm Elaine. This is Joe. We're hailing from our little island of Ireland, just on the border, as we say, between North and South. We run Equine Rescue Charity, have done for 15 years, and we're delighted to be here, invited to join all of you. So hi from Ireland to all of you around the world. It's good to be here.
Thank you very much, Elaine and Joe. And last but not least, Barry, please.
Well, hello, everybody from Auckland in New Zealand. It's Barry Down here. I'm been studying many years of astrology from an esoteric perspective. I was born and raised in England, but I have a Hungarian genealogy and history and ancestry. So lovely to hear from you all or see you all.
Thank you very much, Barry. So I'd like to pass over to yourself, Earl, to set the ball rolling this evening. To the way this discussion is going to be moderated is based upon a particular question, a single question, which is being put to each of the speakers in turn. And the question is quite bold, really. But the question is this: if the great spirit of the animal kingdom were to grant you permission to speak on their behalf, what message would they wish to convey to humanity at this precise point in our history? So this question is going to be passed to each speaker in turn. And so first of all, it gives me great pleasure and an honor to hand over to Earl Charters. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Shane. Well, I think if the spirits would speak through me, I guess, thank me for the platform I've had. I've had, well, the opportunity to dance, and every time I dance, it's usually in front of a crowd. And every time before I dance, I have to explain what I'm going to do. And the whole theme of the hoop dance is all spirits living in unity. And even more than that, it's all dancing to the heart, the drum. And the drum beat in my culture is known as the heartbeat of the earth, the heartbeat of Mother Earth, because Mother Earth and Father Sky. So it's the heartbeat of Mother Earth bringing all spirits together. And I think the spirits talking through me would be thankful that I've had the platform to explain that to a larger audience. And the hoop dance itself, well, I said, the hoop represents spirit. And in my culture, we believe that everything has a spirit. People have a spirit. Groups of people have a spirit. Animals have a spirit. Rocks, lakes, rivers, everything has a spirit, and groups of them have a spirit. And you can open up and include people or things into your hoop as you like. So like yourself, your family, your town, your country, they're all your separate hoops. And it's the heartbeat of the earth bringing all hoops together is the theme of the hoop dance.
I remember when Barry first introduced us, and I heard you speaking on a video of yourself dancing, and you were describing this symbolism, and that toward the culmination of the dance, you bring all the hoops together. And this symbolism really spoke to me, and this, I feel, is essentially what we hope to develop over the coming years, is to bring people together from all different backgrounds and cultural traditions to enter into an open discussion about this subject, about consciously reconnecting with the spiritual sanctity of the animal kingdom and the natural world. So how do you feel about where humanity's at this point in time and our relationship with the spiritual dimension of the natural world? What are your feelings about this?
I don't have less of a global feeling about it, more just myself really, and just myself in the dance. I kind of get lost in the dance, and it's the most wonderful feeling, having the drum beat take over and then me taking over the hoops. And the formations I do and I make, well, I've been doing it so long, it flows pretty naturally for me now, but it was a long, hard process getting to where I'm at that point as a dancer. And well, yeah, the symbolism of spiritualism is huge. We go into the arbor, we turn to the right with the same way the sun goes around the earth, the moon goes around the earth. And start with my first hoop, which represents my own spirit. The second, the spirit of the mother. Third, spirit of the father. They make a ball that represents the family. And go through like about 70 formations in 11 minutes is my usual dance. And going through all kinds of various formations: snake, baby bird, mother eagle, walking bear, dancing bear, soaring hawk, geese flying in flight, a bee, flowers. There's a never-ending evolving dance.
Has the dance evolved for you over the years in any particular ways?
It used to. I've been dancing for like 27 years now, and I started when I was 27, which is really late. Usually start when you're a child. And I used to compete, and in a competition, I'd change my dance a lot. And I don't change it anymore because I don't do it that often anymore, maybe a couple times a year. And I'm always in front of a different audience. I'm never in front of the same audience, so I don't have to change my routine. And the theme of it is just the same. Like, people really do appreciate it. I've been lucky enough to travel all over the world doing it with the Canadian Embassy. And every different culture has appreciated the same. Like, especially the Japanese really loved the whole theme of the hoop dance.
And you say you've traveled to many countries in your work, and in one of your videos you mentioned some of the countries, the names of the different countries, and it really is lots and lots of them, isn't it? You've really traveled extensively.
Yes. I've been around the world a few times. I was in the Navy for 20 years, and 10 years in the Navy, 10 years in the Army. And through that, the Canadian embassies, and just my Army travels and my own holiday travels, and the embassy flying me around every few months, I was flying someplace representing Canada doing the hoop dance. It was fantastic.
And do you find that there's any particular animal archetype that resonates for you personally more than any of the others? Is there any specific one that you have an affinity with?
Well, it's not in my dance, but my particular nation, Vernon, British Columbia, Canada, the strongest symbol there is the coyote, the trickster. And other than that, the eagle. The eagle. This is the kind of universally known as the most powerful spirit. Yeah.
Have you had any particular experiences with those animals yourself?
Well, they're everywhere in Canada. Coyotes are pretty common. Yeah, in everyone's backyard. You can hear them howling. And other than that, and eagles, they used to be more rare. When I was growing up in the 70s, now they're everywhere. Yeah.
Well, that's a very good thing to hear, really. I mean, considering that there's been so much devastation and destruction of natural habitats, it's heartening to hear this.
Yeah, it's incredible, the transformation, actually. They were endangered when I was growing up, and now they're like seagulls. They're everywhere.
Wonderful. That's actually really great news. So Earl, I know that you work as a medic, isn't that correct? Or a radiographer?
I was a medic for 20 years in the Canadian military, and I retired and moved to New Zealand. Now I'm a radiographer, medical imaging technologist.
Yes. So healing, obviously, is your profession, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, I'm a qualified paramedic, but yeah, now I take pictures of bones.
Okay, so could I ask you, in your opinion, what healing can come to humanity if more people were to open themselves and reconnect consciously with these sacred spirits of the natural world? What healing could take place through this?
I guess it would start on a personal level with them, and then if groups of people came together, like expanding your hoop, bring other similar like-minded people into your hoop, caring, compassionate people. I mean, only good can come from that.
I absolutely agree. Thank you so much, Earl. I understand that you need to go to work as well, isn't it? Because it's early morning.
Yes,
where
yeah.
you are. Is there anything that you would like to ask of any of the other speakers before you have to go to work?
Not so much to ask, but good luck and thank you for sharing everything, and thank you for inviting me. Merry Christmas.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Earl. Thank you very much for being here. And I wish you a wonderful day and a Merry Christmas.
And you as well, and all of you too.
Thank you, Earl. Take good care. So, 1 second, please. So everybody, it now gives me great pleasure to hand over to Pippa Rodger from World Animal Protection. And over to you, Pippa.
My tears are universal. My pain is your pain. My home is your home. We are one. These are the words I heard when I connected with Sheen's profound and deep question. And while I know it is an iconic image, I had a vision of a polar bear and could literally see his home getting swept away along with ours as we continue to ravage our world. I could see that our problems are the animal kingdom's problems and vice versa. There is no them and us. We are all one. So why are we so lost? And when did we get so lost? I'm honoured to work for an organisation, World Animal Protection, that has been working to protect animals for over 50 years. And I have been reflecting on this question as I have seen our work need to change. At the beginning, we were very much focused on hands-on work, sanctuaries, dog shelters, healing an injured animal after a disaster. But it never stopped. It only got worse. We never saw less animals need our help, only more. In fact, animal cruelty was accelerating at such a rate that we had no choice but to change how we worked. We found ourselves at the point where our food system, which feeds the world, became the biggest cause of animal suffering on our planet, literally enslaving billions of farm animals into our barbaric regime, which future generations will look back on in horror. Where the global wildlife trade, both illegal and legal, became one of the biggest trades in the world, creating a living misery for every wild animal caught up in it, decimating their habitats, while putting us at risk of disease and pandemics like the one we're living through today. We somehow got to the point where we forgot that animals are living sentient beings with emotions and feelings of their own, where it seemed okay to let a solitary dolphin that swims for miles in the wild and dives to great depths spend over 40 years swimming in circles in a tiny chlorinated pool just to entertain us. And we got so proud, we tamed the mighty beast, the elephant, for what? To allow hordes of tourists to jump on his back day in, day out. We broke him into subordination by ripping him away from his mother as a baby and abusing him until his spirit was quite simply crushed. So as an organisation, we had to change our approach and focus on tackling the root causes of animal suffering. And that means taking on the big global systems that fuel their enslavement. And our focus is on two of the biggest, the industrial food system and the global trade in wild animals. And we started to elevate animal welfare to become a priority issue of global importance and make it clear to politicians, to corporates, to people that animal welfare is inextricably linked to human welfare, and that actually animal welfare connects to every other big issue of our time, from the climate emergency to poverty, public health, population growth, and the rapid urbanization that is destroying their habitats. But the good news is that we are starting to see a shift. The global pandemic has started to open our eyes to how we treat animals. And at our last event, I spoke about a campaign we were just launching to call on G20 leaders to end the global trade in wild animals forever. While we knew it was a big ask, we also knew we had to be bold. We would never get another opportunity to put animal welfare on the global stage. And over 1 million people around the world supported us. That's more than any campaign we have ever ran, because more and more people are starting to demand change for animals. And the G20 leaders themselves made some encouraging signs. On the eve of the summit, the communiqué from the G20 Agriculture and Water Ministers meeting was published. It proved that ministers acknowledged the connection between human and animal health, referred to as the One Health approach, and called for action to be taken. We thought that we could be edging closer to high-level political commitment to end the wildlife trade that millions of people, scientists, and NGOs have been calling for. But it wasn't meant to be. The G20 leaders pledged to ensure that pandemics such as COVID never happen again and acknowledged the need for long-term solutions. But the question remains, why did they stop short of mentioning the root cause of this issue, the exploitation of wild animals in the global wildlife trade? After all, we know that several countries, including the UK, Australia, Germany, and Mexico, were supportive of a discussion on the wildlife trade, and there appeared to be enthusiasm from other nations too. India's Prime Minister spoke of the need to be trustees rather than owners of nature and the environment. And the Chinese president spoke of building a clean and beautiful world where man and nature coexist in harmony. The leaders' declaration also stressed the importance of safeguarding our planet. So we are seeing an appetite among political circles, among businesses, among consumers, and among lots and lots of people around the world. But more needs to be done to keep the pressure on. So I wanted to share once again what came up when I reflected on Sheen's wise question and what we can do to keep the pressure on and change the world for animals. This is what I felt the animal kingdom was saying to me. Can you really not see the fear and terror in my eyes when you wrench me away from my family and home to lock me in a cold, barred cage, sending me for miles and miles to a place I do not know, to face a lifetime of misery with whomever I have the misfortune to end up with? Can you really not see my body quivering with fear when you brutally push me onto a conveyor belt with thousands of other animals, like a piece of plastic in a machine ready to be mutilated, processed, and killed, so that I can end up in a cheap chicken bucket? Can you really look me in the eye and tell me that I don't have feelings? Do you really think I feel nothing, that I am just a toy for you to enjoy? How did you become so disconnected? When did you disassociate yourself with the animal kingdom? When did you become disconnected from yourself? How has it valued you? You have had your freedom now. You've had your reign of our planet, of our home. Are you any happier, any wiser, any richer? Or do you yearn to return to a quieter, more connected time? Because I feel that watching humanity flail under the pandemic, watching the desperation rise in people's eyes, the despair, the longing for something more, I feel that you want to come back, you want to return, you want to reconnect, but you don't know how. So I am saying to you, slow down, breathe, look at the sky, walk in the woods, see the trees, hear the birds, and remember, you are us, and we are you, and we can be together again. But we can't be without your voice. You are our voice. We need your voice, and we need you with an urgency like never before to speak out for us at every opportunity you get, to convince every single person you meet that we are one, that we are connected, and that if you don't protect us, you will ultimately harm yourselves. Because if you don't, it will be too late. Too late for us, too late for you. So please help us now, while you still can, before it's too late. My tears are universal. My pain is your pain. My home is your home. We are one.
Thank you so much, Pippa. That was extraordinary and very, very moving, very powerful. Before we continue to the other speakers, Earl, I see you're still here. So we've had a couple of questions from some of the people who are joining us on this call now live. And one of them is about in the hoop dance, is there a particular costume that you wear for this? And I would like to add to this, because I have actually seen the costume that you wear, and there's particular symbolism on the costume of a red equal-armed cross, which I found very beautiful. Could you speak at all about the costume that you wear and if there's any particular symbolism associated with this? You would need to unmute yourself, please, Earl. You need to unmute yourself, Earl.
Yeah, and first off, we don't like to call it a costume. We call it a regalia. And it's the same regalia I wear when I do fancy dance. I have a big headdress and lots of feathers all over me, but I take them off when I do the hoops because the hoops would just destroy the feathers. And basically, it has to be small, and the fringe is not too long, so the hoops don't get caught up in them because I'm constantly flying over my body. And basically, it has to be kind of small. And the red cross was my own design. And every dancer has their own design. It has to be given to them, or they design it themselves, and they have to be given permission to wear that design and their costume. And like I said, the Starlight family and my another spiritual mother, adopted mother in Kamloops, Canada, gave me permission to wear that regalia. It's my own design. It's a medical red cross because I was a medic in the military, and with inward pointing arrows from 4 directions, black and yellow arrows pointing inwards. Yeah, it's my own design, and I was given permission to wear it by the Starlight family and my mother in Kamloops, Canada.
Thank you, Earl. There's another question from somebody called Nathan Bexton. Thank you very much, Nathan. And the question is the Thunderbird and other mythological animals incorporated into the dance? And are there any of these considered the top of the totem or venerated above all others uniformly by all nations? Or is this tribally contingent?
It's kind of North America wide now, the hoop dance. Originally it comes from Arizona, and I don't come from Arizona. I come from South Central British Columbia. But it's through the advent of sharing, which is what a powwow is. It's just a sharing of yourselves, your dance and culture. And so it's spread North America wide. And the eagle and the birds are part of the theme of my dance. But the Thunderbird is specific more to the West Coast. And West Coast, they have a different style of dance than the traditional powwow that the Plains natives do. When I do more of a Plains dance, like from the prairies, not coastal. The coastal, that's where the Thunderbird comes from. So no, actually Thunderbird's not in my dance, but the birds are.
Wonderful, thanks so much, Earl. There's a message from Grenville to Pippa saying thank you, that your talk just moved Grenville to tears. And I suspect that that's in a very good way.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
So I'd like to now pass over to James Fearnley, please. So James, the floor is yours. Hello, James, are you there?
He's on mute.
James, you need to unmute yourself, please.
Yeah, sorry, I do this so often. Yeah, I seem to manage to forget to do it every time. So, I mean, the first thing I wanted to say, Sheen, was basically thank you for bringing us all together. I think this is an extraordinary event for us to share not only our kind of practical experience in the world, but our inner thoughts about the issue that we're looking at. So thank you very much for doing that. And I think it's something that is taking place, as Pippa has just alluded to. It's something that's taking place absolutely at the right time. It's almost, you know, I was thinking, what do I want to say before I introduce my answer to your question? And I think the thing that kind of the thing that struck me was we've lived through an age of increasing consciousness as human beings. We've never been as conscious in certain senses ever. And what this has meant, it's been a kind of shrinking of our kind of awareness of the other world. Our world has come right down into us. We've become such a strong single I. And as a result, I think we've lost our connection with so much of what we've been talking about. But I don't think this should necessarily leave us in a pessimistic frame of mind, because I think also we're undergoing a tremendous kind of evolution at the moment, a sort of metamorphic moment. And the irony, of course, is that, the paradox is that COVID, the stress that it has brought to people has actually sort of opened their eyes as well. So I think for so long we've been looking down. I think we're beginning to sort of look up again. And I think that's the context in which makes me feel positive about the issue that we're talking about. I mean, my life was absolutely entirely changed by the student revolution in 1968. I was all set up to be a smart-assed and well-paid barrister. And then I went to London to do a master's degree in 1968. And I became a revolutionary because I could see it was the time of the Vietnam War. People got involved. I got involved and I changed. And I think in a way, what's happening now is that we're all facing situations where we're given choices again. Big choices, whether we get involved. And I think this is also one of those situations. So after kind of running away from yuppiedom, I did the self-sufficiency thing, in which we all did in the 1960s, and went to live in the country and became a potter. I'd never done anything useful in my entire life. I don't know how it happened, but I ended up for 10 years earning a living with these. And we had 6 children, and we lived on the breadline. But I'll tell you what that did. It enabled you to look out and see. You weren't chasing your tail all the time, as Pippa referred to. We were able to kind of think and look and question. By some miracle, I became involved with bees. This is about 35 years ago, and started a company selling a product called Propolis, which is a most amazing natural healer. And 35 years later, I'm in the middle of organizing a global conference to talk about the medicinal properties of bee products. So we've gone from my engagement with a product where most people thought it was something to do with witchcraft, to something to do with the way in which we can actually solve a major global problem of antibiotic resistance. Things have changed. Actually, they were completely different even 8-9 months ago. There's been a real shift. We're beginning to sort of look again at some key issues. And I think in that process, and I guess we'll all kind of come to kind of know how we change through our ages. We know, for instance, you know, in our youth, we're very kind of involved with our sensory systems, with our body and with our desires and with what we want. And in a way, human beings have passed into that stage, they're like a really kind of overweening adolescent who can't see anybody except himself, you know. But things are changing, and it's also true, I think, that when you get older and when you have that experience, when you have those experiences, you do get nearer to a capacity to understand not just your physical being, but your spiritual being. So I guess, I mean, I could tell you loads about bees, but I guess the thing that was in my mind was how we are gradually, and we'd be given opportunities by circumstance, by the grand conjunction, by COVID. None of these things are kind of random events. They're events which we have brought on ourselves, but in a certain sense they also contain our way forward. So I think often of the sort of the business executive who is go, 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 and when he gets to sort of 50, he has the heart attack, and then he wonders why he didn't think differently before. Sometimes we need those big dramatic events. So really, I just wanted to kind of focus on that sense of, in a way, optimism, really, that it's not really up to us. We're not really controlling the show. We're not the generators. We're the transformers. We're the people who we have to find. We have to find our kind of understanding of who we are and where we belong and what our particular right action is. So I'm going to move on now to just deal with this question that Sheen asked me. And he asked me, he said, would you think about what it is the bees are telling you? So I thought about it, and this is what I came up with. You asked me what the bees are telling me. I will tell you. They're telling me we are the crown of nature. We are the way of evolution. We are the emissary of all. We are the servants. We are the savants. We are the savior. We are the many, and we are the one. We are the knowers and the believers. Human beings, we are the creators and the makers. We are the platform of your making. We are the detour around your incompleteness. We are the meaning of you in nature. We are the model of nature grown complete. We are an example of the future. We are that which you should learn from nature. We are the stepping stone. We are the bridge of your becoming. We do no harm. We are the sweetness in nature's bitterness. We are the six-sided heart, the heart fulfilled. We have not emotions, only purpose. Our purpose is feeling. Our network of love is feeling. Our single-mindedness is feeling. Our imagination is feeling. We live in the field of feeling. We have made feeling. We have made the heart. We feel no pain, only purpose, only service. We feel no hurt, only incompleteness in the work. the sweet essence of work. We feel no resentment, only incompleteness of the work, in our ability to connect, to make good, to collect, to husband, to nurture, to bring together, to build, to join together, to speak, to enliven, to protect, to transform, to be the alchemy of the heart. We have served our purpose. We have borne fruit. We are now your beginning. The fruit has fallen. You are the fruit. You are the seed. Our story has become your story. Our responsibility is now your responsibility. We are become the aged and the ancient ones. We watch over you and belong for you. We have retained our thoughts. Our love is light. Our thoughts are love. Our light is the Christ. We are with Christ. We are here in his body. We are here in your body. Our outer form has become a remnant, a reminiscence, a memory. We are become the aged ones and the ancestor. We keep watch now only with our love. You now carry the light. Complete the reading of your story from our fading light. Burn bright yourself that you may nourish our fading light. Step back into the light for us. Rekindle your love for us. It is the love of the light itself, yourself. Set us free to roam again. Let our Queen reign again in peace and in perpetuity. Let our community return home, return to its first, its final, its only. Let us belong again in your heart, where we have longed to belong, where we belong, the human being.
Thank you so much, James. That was very, very beautiful. And again, very, very powerful. I'd like now to hand over with great pleasure and honor to TeRangimarie Carter. Over to you, please. And you would need to unmute yourself.
I think I have I? Yeah. Kia ora, good morning, everybody. I'd like to, first of all, before I call my own name, is to pay great honour in our traditional way is to give thanks to the House of Learning. And so, and honouring and giving thanks to the keepers of that house. So, kia ora tātou to you, Sheen, and to all the other presenters as well for being in your house and your sharing. My name is TeRangimarie Carter, and my background is Maori, but I also have a very strong ancestral connection with the Native American First Nations as well. And a lot of my work that I do now, my just previous past life in this life was as a as a nurse, taking care of aged in the aged care sector. But with all of that in between, the work that I guess I picked up and worked with is purification sweat lodge ceremonies and ceremonial stories. So as I want to also acknowledge my mum. She's my spiritual mum and was unable to join today. But I spoke with her this morning. So this is woman, she's from the Pueblo Nation of San Ildefonso, but was born and raised on the Wind River in Wyoming, amongst the Arapaho and Shoshone people, and bordering the Cheyenne people as well. So I wanted to acknowledge my mum, because what I'm about to share, thank you. What I'm about to share with everybody today is offering up a prayer to start. And so if you would bear with me. Creator Great Spirit, wakanton ko tungashila pila maya kiayo, watupikele noa tungashila. Grandfathers and grandmothers for all the nations, I give thanks to you and all our relatives from the animal kingdom, from the birds and the plants, the ones that swim in the oceans, the ones that swim in the air, and the ones of us who walk on Mother Earth, and also for those who look down over us and care for us in the Star Nation. I give thanks for your time with us this morning and your time with me, and my prayer is to be able to share the message that I have willingly and graciously been able to offer your voice on behalf of your voice. Oh. So it's a storytelling. My mom was a great storyteller, and I guess I inherited great storytelling from her. So part of this story today was woven together. It's a creation story and a co-creation story and a recreation story of how we as humans need to prepare ourselves through purification of one way or another to get back to the one-hearted path. And that one-hearted path opens up on many levels on Grandmother Earth and Grandfather Sky, on all the directions that they come from. And our one-heartedness has, over the lifetimes on Mother Earth, has come to a point where we have allowed two-heartedness. That's a whole different way of thinking, and a destructive way of thinking in some big parts. And so what has happened, that the Creator and the creatures have sent back to help the human path, the human mind and the human memory, by sending in speakers on their behalf of the animal nation. Grandmother Spider is one. And she's come to help the people weave together all of their stories and all of their ways and all of their healing. The Buffalo Nation was represented by white buffalo calf women who came to a nation in the Plains Nations through the human prayer of, we have used so much of the gifts that are around us of plants and animals, and we've just annihilated by taking more than we needed. So came a time of starvation. And so the Creator has sent down Buffalo Calf Woman with some ceremonies to remind people of how to reconnect back in. And the ceremonies came through a pipe. The ceremonies were many of those teachings of going to purification. And the base of, and the heart of all of that was to reconnect us with our one-hearted way, and that is coming into one being, and to remember all things previous speakers have mentioned those words as well, to come back to the oneness. And that's not just our, not just our selfishness of humanity and take, but also to bring that one-heartedness about inclusion of all things. One-heartedness, all things. The other being that came in with a voice, there were many, was Coyote. Coyote has been around for the last few days with me. And Coyote has great teachings for us to look at ourselves and laugh at ourselves as well. Coyote is a great trickster. And also Coyote is one of the greatest teachers on the medicine wheel, because he teaches us how not to be. But by doing that, we've got to go out and do this stuff so that we can learn from it. You know, that's that whole thing, that whole story about learn from your mistakes. Coyote will always come in and show himself or herself on the background. Just remember to take a good look at what is around you. And so in his being, Coyote comes back, and when he sits in front of you and presents himself, he reminds us to get back to the one-hearted path. Just, you know, be mindful. As does the Buffalo Nation. You know, go in sacred prayer, but be mindful of what you're doing. Present yourself in a way that you're honouring not just you, but all other things first. Come back to one-heartedness. So with Coyote, when I was talking to my mum, Pat, this morning, I said, so who's arrived at the door? And she says, it's that Coyote. Coyote's arrived. And so her message to me was, please thank the forum and everybody watching for listening in, because Coyote brings a great message for all of us about making sure that we find our path back to one-heartedness and back to the ceremonies and back to the teachings that everyone carries collectively, you know. So, you know, here am I sitting down here in New Zealand, a Maori girl with Native American descent here. And so the talk this morning was, so the story that I'll eventually get to is another animal story, but it's a connection, it's a co-creation, it's a creation, it's a recreation story. And the roots of this story come from the Cheyenne River. And as it was told to an elder of the Arapaho Nation, and they were quite close. So I want to acknowledge Cheyenne River elders who shared this story with a medicine grandfather who was my mum's medicine teacher. His name is Alfred Redman. He comes from the Arapaho Nation. He's now in spirit. And so early this morning, I'm bombarded with stories. And so Alfred came through on a spiritual level, and he says, this is the story to share, because it's a co-creation story, and it comes from the very heart of Turtle Island. But it's a co-creation story that goes in all the directions. And so we have to honour those directions and the people that hold those directions, and the teachings that the different races of people were given by the Creator. And so I acknowledge that on behalf of Alfred. And it's a story that my mum shared with me many years ago. So it's developed more. So the story is an honouring of the four nations and of the black race of people, and their responsibility that the Creator gave them was to take care of things in the physical and to move in that physical way, and the energy that came with that was the energy of the air. So the Black Nation people, the Dark Nation people were given that opportunity to, and that responsibility to take care of air, and the physical way of life. Then came the white nation, the white race of people, and their responsibility was to take care of fire and to take care of the intellect, the mental being. And then came the yellow race of people, and their responsibility was to take care of the water. And with that water was holding the energy of our emotional being. And then the last nation was the red nation, which included the brown nation as well. And their responsibility was to take care of all things of Mother Earth, to hold those teachings, to hold that way. And their responsibility was also to ensure that the spiritual walk in life was there for all the people. And so in communicating with Alfred this morning, the stories that came through was, one of his stories was about a young boy who had wandered off into the woods, into the forest. And had, I guess we would have called it, he got lost, but he actually wasn't lost at all. He had wandered home into the forest with all the animals and all the critters and all the beings in the forest. He was home. He knew where his home was. But his human family spent a long, long time trying to find him. And of course, the parents and family were distressed that he was lost. And they were getting ready to go to summer camp. So they were having to move. And as distressing as it was, the parents had to move on as well. But they kept coming back. But in the meantime, this young boy had found his way to the animal kingdom family, and they had taken him in. And the one that took him in and took this boy under her wing was Bear, Mother Bear. And she was the one who spoke with him, and she was so surprised that he was able to understand her, because, and so the word got out amongst the animal kingdom and amongst all the critters that here is a human being who knows and hears our voice. For so many years, they had disconnected from us and had lost their way of respect and respecting us, that the balance was no longer there. But here is a child who has come from the human world and understands us. So over time and over many years, the animal kingdom worked with this young boy and taught him all the ways of the medicine on the land and how to take care of things and what was right to eat and what was not right to eat, and their own ceremonies that they did. But in the meantime, Mother Bear knew that in time that this human child would have to go back to its human family. And so they got a big circle together, as they do. And the Creator arrived, because the Creator knows all of this stuff. So he came down to make sure that things were in right order. And so the circle was, and the talk around all the nations that had gathered, all our relatives, all the animal kingdom, the plants and the trees, all the birds, everyone had got together. And they had made a commitment to ensure that this young boy was given everything that he needed from the animal kingdom to take care of himself, so that when the time came, that he was able to take their voice back to the human family. And so Grandmother Bear was given that opportunity to work with him for as long as she could, to teach him about going to the winter camps for her and for a lot of them. But they followed the human family so that the boy could still hear his original language. But what he was seeing, he wasn't liking. And so he became more reluctant to go out into his human family. And so many things had to be reinforced in him. So eventually the Mother Bear had said, we're going to get a little closer there so you can understand their language, because there is going to be a time that you are chosen to go out into the world and back into the human family. And that time came. And so he was well prepared by the animal kingdom. And he walked back out into the villages and to the village, and his mother recognised him. And so there was a great celebration of his return. But they realised, as in First Nations people realise, and First Nations all around the world, I don't just mean Native American, I mean, we all have them all around the world, is they recognised that he was carrying medicine. Some call him a shaman, but Native American First Nations people will often call them, they don't call themselves, of course, but they recognise a medicine person. And they saw that this medicine man was had great energy. And so he got to sit in council with everybody and to tell the stories of how to be out there in the world and how to take care and honour the animals in that way. And that, you know, he didn't hold back in telling the people that, you know, you have come off the path. You know, this is now, it's time for you to come back on the path to honour our animal kingdom. And so this was his job. And so it is told that he didn't stay with his family in his village, even though they wanted him to. He said, I have a job to go out onto Mother Earth, all around Mother Earth, on all nations. We have, the Lakota people have a word called Matakwe Oyasi, which means all my relations. And that includes everything. And so he was, this young man had his job and to go out into Mother Earth, to walk all across Mother Earth and to take this message and to remind the human families of how to reconnect. And so there were ceremonies, there were purifications, there was time to be on the land, time to honour the things that if you're taking, because you have to survive, the animal kingdom have given, offered themselves in sacrifice for humans to be able to eat. The fishes, some of the birds, all of those sorts of things, but take them and take us in an honourable way. So that was his message to across the nation. And so my mum reminded me this morning that for the purpose of our story, his name was Manatu Makwa. And so that is a Anishinaabe word, but it's a Lakota word as well. I mean, Makwa means the bear, the great bear, and the spiritual bear. So that was my coming through today of the question, Brother Sheen, that you put out on your behalf of the spirit beings that came through you. Is how do we take care of ourselves, and how do we reconnect, and how do we, and what is the word, what is this voice that's coming through the animals? It is reconnecting. It is finding our one-hearted path. It is coming back to connect with everybody and everything that is around us. It is finding that space like Manatu Makwa, who walks across the universe and has been respectful for all things, And that's, you know, that's the way that they said, you know, the only way that we can change is to change. And the only way to change is to open our eyes. And so one of the last things, there were many things that the grandfathers and grandmothers gave me this morning, but to condense all of that down was that self-preservation for all of us is to remember that, and taking care of our animal kingdom and all our relatives. And there are so many of us out there that have the opportunity to make this change. The message that's come through from some of the speakers is the COVID, you know, it's blamed on the animal kingdom. You know, well, this is where it's come from. Well, I wonder why it got that way. Overcrowding, you know, people walking off the one-hearted path for the sake of wanting more and more, greed, and you know, blaming it on the animal kingdom. Well, you know, it's a cycle of life. And so the other message was being responsible, that we all, as humans, all of us out there, not just those of us who are speaking today, but every one of us has the right of responsibility to take care of our own actions and to walk in that sacred path and to get back on that one-hearted path as best we can. You know, there's many of us around the world, around this mother, that are doing little things, and there are those of us doing big things, and it all works on a collective energy. It all works, you know. There are big voices out there in the world, and there are little voices out there in the world. And so at the beginning of this, there was the four nations of the black, the white, the yellow, and the red nations. And so we all have that. We all are a mixed bunch of folk. And so we have a responsibility. You know, that was in the day, way back in the day, that the Creator had asked for these nations to take care of these things. And I really feel the voice that was coming through from the animal kingdom and from Manatu Makwa and the grandfathers and grandmothers this morning was that we all have a collective responsibility, all of us. And whether it's little or big, we still have that collective opportunity and that collective voice to put together the sacredness of what we have bandied about as, oh, she'll be right. Well, it's not. It's time for us to make that change and bring that change back into right order. And so, and I often say this in ceremony, and particularly when we go to the Anikau ceremony at the Sweat Lodge. There are responsibilities that we have, and we have actions that we can have upon those responsibilities. And when these ceremonies are put out, these ceremonies are done for all our relatives. So we go into that lodge in purification, not just for ourselves, but to go in there. And when we go in there to sing some songs. And those songs hold a sacredness, hold a sacred element of one-heartedness to get us back to that place, because those songs are prayers. And then the next is that we go in there to pray. And it's a collective pray, and it's an individual pray, and it's a prayer out to all things. And those prayers hold sacred songs. But they also hold sacred medicine. And when we're in that lodge, and there's sacred medicine, and the medicine that comes in is from the voice of the grandmother stones that are carried into that ceremony and inside the womb of the Mother Earth in that lodge, and are placed in there. And those grandmas and grandpas come in, and they bring in all the elements of air, fire, earth, and water. And so that medicine is placed on them. So that medicine is not just for us humans, but it's for all our relatives, so that we are reminded to come back to the one heart. And what the grandpas ask of us, and you know, I've heard this from many grandfathers and grandmothers around these ceremonies, is for all of those things, for the songs and the prayers and the medicine, is all great. But the biggest thing for us to come back to find our way, to find our path back to the one-heartedness, is that we have to truly believe that we can make this move. Truly believe that. So that was the big part of the message that grandpas came through with this morning. And Coyote, you know, Coyote arrived at my mum's doorstep this morning, and that was the message, you know, take care of everything, come back to the one heart, come back to that sacred path for all of us, because we're all involved in this. There are many voices around the world now, and we have a responsibility to take care of all of that. And however big or small that we can do that, and however way that we can do that. So I want to thank you all for the opportunity to be able to speak on behalf of all our relatives, and that the message that comes through is be responsible for your actions. And so I just want to say thank you, the whole Matakoasi, all my relations.
Thank you so much, TeRangimarie. There are some really lovely questions that people are asking, but we're going to save that until a little later. So I'd like to hand over now to Elaine and Joe Duffy. Over to you, Elaine and Joe. Thank you.
Hi, Sheen, and hi to everybody out there.
Hi, everybody.
Yeah, it's really a great honor to be part of this beautiful evening. And really and truly, we're very humbled. We're sitting listening here to all of you, and there's a huge part of us that says, what are we doing here and why are we here, you know? And that's a question that we have asked ourselves for many, many years now. We ended up being part of a horse rescue, not by choice. It's something, as we always say, happened. Irish people are great believers in, as we call them, the powers that be. And when something happens that changes your entire life, a lot of the time you end up that you hit the ground running, and you just live in a world that is so centralized and focused on what you're doing. And I suppose really in a way, we find that this was such an incredible journey of learning, a journey of giving of ourselves beyond a level that we ever thought that we were capable of doing, offering a service that we never thought in our wildest dreams we would be able to give. Yeah.
Yeah. Many times I suppose we've stopped and thought, oh, how we just can't go on, you know, just how are we going to carry on? And something will happen. Spirit will send us some sort of a message, and we just know that's it. That's what it's all about, you know. And it's true. It would be true with us. It was through the horses that this message would come. Isn't that it?
Yeah, we ended up living, eating, sleeping, and breathing horses when we really, honestly knew very little about them. And they were there, I suppose, really to take us on a journey of teaching. To teach us what it's about. I'm going, so I suppose, to be a wee bit different as far as we spoke in depth about Sheen's question, which we thought was absolutely a wonderful question to ask. And really and truly, what came across, we thought, oh yeah, but we kind of got this, because when somebody said to you, we're going to ask you a question, part of you panics and you think, oh, what am I going to say to answer that? Well, a lot of the time we have to give in to this side of us that being brought up extremely Catholic, we weren't into spirituality in the way that people would
it has changed over the years.
Yeah, embrace shamanism, whatever, and it was all alien to us. So when this started happening, where we felt that we were connecting with the animals, here we were in the middle of a huge crisis where there was absolutely hundreds of horses that, because of a Celtic tiger, because of, like our friends said earlier on this evening, a lot of you said greed and ego, and people just, if you didn't have a horse or pony, you weren't au fait, you weren't part of the clique. So when things overnight took a nosedive, of course, the first thing that's going to go is those luxuries, and unfortunately those horses and a lot of other animals were classed as surplus to requirement. That's the only way I can say it. They no longer could afford to pay for these things, but a lot of people didn't want to admit that they were no longer the wealthy people that they wanted to be. And these horses were dumped in backfields and down laneways and on the mountains and left to just basically slowly starve to death. And then, of course, they got into the hands of people who will never ever come to any kind of understanding of some people in our world who can be so evil, is the only word that we can use for it, to these creatures that all they want to give to us is love, and that's it. So when Sheen's question came to us, as usual, I end up waking at 4 o'clock in the morning, and this barrage of energy or talk or whatever chatter is going on, and basically I start off because they spoke to me as the animals, and the question is, if we were you, what are you going to say to us? What have you got to say to us as human beings in this time, in this energy that we have now? And there is so much going on that is negative, so much going on around us. So what they basically said was, stop. Just stop. Stop. And in your darkest moments of fear, anxiety, despair, and loneliness, reach out to us. We've got this. We have this. We are not to blame for it. We have it. So if mankind will open their hearts to our light of the animal kingdom, we can ignite that eternal spark of love. Deep within your heart, and gently, that tiny spark is going to grow to a powerful, radiant force directly from source. A light to dispel all darkness, allowing the energy of love, peace, joy, and hope into your body, mind, and soul. A fusion of energy that animals have to share with all of us who are mankind. So hold on tight to us. And when you realize how glad you are to hold on to that hug of love, miraculously, that energy begins to return to us. We are sacred creatures, just like angels. Our Creator formed us to teach mankind how to love unconditionally, with no condition, with nothing. We're not asking anything, nothing. And when all feels lost, suddenly you will feel whole again. Please allow us to be there for you. So we've experienced so many occasions when we, as human beings, have experienced this love and this energy. We've watched it. We've watched it take hold and unfold in front of us.
We've witnessed it, you know. I'd like to share one particular story with everybody. We had a little pony that came in one time to us, a Shetland. It had been so badly treated that when it arrived to us, it came off the horse box, and you could not get your hands on it. It had just run everywhere and anywhere. But we got it into the stable and into a stall, and as soon as you'd go near it, it'd cower in the back of the stable. Just go to the back of the stable and stick its head in the corner, and just, I suppose when it had its head stuck in the corner, it thought it was safe, you know. But we worked with it over days and probably weeks, and we were really getting nowhere with it, until one day this lady called a mum and her young son with her who was special needs. And severe enough autism. And he walked down to the stall where the pony was, and I was talking to the mum, and I just happened to look around, and the next thing I seen him at the gate of the stall. He just stood and looked at the little pony, and the pony was looking at him then, and all of a sudden he walked close to the gate, and the little pony walked over, and he put his hand in and he touched him. And I just looked and I thought, that's what it's all about. You know, that was just one of them moments when, as I said earlier, many's a time we asked, how can we carry on, you know? And here was one of them moments, you know, when you just go, it's that moment. You just think, that's it. That's what it's all about, you know? And I just wanted to say, I'd like to say to everybody out there that no matter how little you think you're doing, every little helps, you know. No matter how little you think you're doing to help the animals, that's it. Just keep doing it, you know.
Yeah.
It all counts.
And we've had some very powerful messages back to, you know, from those animals that we nearly find it difficult to say they speak to you, but they do. And in that moment of that quietness, we have seen a young adult, you know, who had come to us to volunteer with the horses with a really, really bad addiction. There was a number of them. And to see him literally put his arms around the neck of a horse and hold on tight just to steady his legs, because he felt weak. And to watch that powerful exchange where he puts his head on the horse's neck, and just that embrace of love and understanding. It's nearly like this powerful source of energy forces through that animal and into that human being. And in that moment, there's like a fusion, a spiritual fusion that just says, we're here. And for a long, long time, we tried to understand it and put it into words, what exactly was going on here. And we realized then there was a very special energy to it. And that is, we had to come up with a name, and it actually was a daughter of mine came in and she said, you know what it is really? I was thinking about this, and it's reciprocal. It's reciprocal love, because what you're giving, what a human being is giving, they're also receiving back again. So it's a reciprocal exchange of love. And I know in our hearts we say, you know, how do we embrace this? How do we bring this and share it out with other people? And what we mostly noticed is that when a lot of people that are not in a good place in their hearts, when maybe they've got addictions or they've got mental health issues, and just their heart has that lack of love for themselves and that lack of respect for themselves, that they can't even bring themselves to search for that healing that's going to help them. Sometimes it's just that little energy of reaching out and touching something as unconditional as an animal, that pat on their head or that stroke of their fur, of that moment that you stop and think, is there anything that I can do for you? Because I don't care enough about myself to matter, but can I reach out to you? And can I do something for you? And in that moment,
I think the animal too is, you know, it's a case of they know where that person is and just how low they are on themselves. There's like an exchange of energy, you know, an exchange of the God energy. And they can, it's just, well, the God energy is love, you know, so it's that exchange of love. And they think, well, hang on a minute, you know, things aren't all that bad. I think it gives them that bit of a lift that they can get up in the morning again and have something to have a life to live, you know, they have a path to walk and a life to live.
Yeah, and if they don't want to get out of that bed for themselves, then maybe they'll get out of that bed for an animal that needs them desperately. And in that moment, that little chink of a moment, then that light from those animals can enter into their soul and ignite that flame that's going to bring them peace and love and healing and energy. And between the two of them, between animal and human, those people, all of us learn to be those giving, serving individuals that maybe just stop questioning why it is that you're called to do a service for something or someone else that you really don't understand, but you do it to your best of your ability, and you'll just have to wing it on a wing and a prayer, as we say, and just put your trust and your love in God, Creator, whatever name you want to put on that higher being that is there for everyone. We just have to humble ourselves and say, you've got it. We mightn't, but I think yous do. And we have so much to learn going forward.
Yeah, the animals can teach us an awful lot. Nature, if mankind would look around and look at nature, they would learn so much from it, you know. And they'd learn, well, I think now with the whole virus and that, everything's stopped, and this has happened for a reason.
Yeah.
It's for humanity to look at themselves.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, say, you know, why did this happen? Because it's mankind's own fault, because of the way they're treating nature and treating Mother Nature and all that, you know.
Yeah. And maybe in that moment of stopping, can we then stop for that second and say, well, how are we going to help? You know, it's all right for these ones that have these animals all around them and they're hands on and they're doing their bit and whatever. But there are many ways that other people can do this. You know, I mean, while we're now all being forced to work from home, then what about that animal that needs rescued? What about that cat or dog that needs a home, that you're now at home and can give them some time, some love and some of your energy? If you can't have that animal and adopt and foster it, then what about volunteering at a local centre? You know, I mean, you can go down there, and if you're going to go on that walk that you've got for 20 minutes, why not ask them, can you walk a dog? Take a dog with you that needs some interaction with people. Why can't you do that? Or if you don't feel that you can do that, well then what about doing some fundraising? Because animals are always there at the very end of all of the lists of charity, and sometimes it's tough to make those ends meet. So maybe a little bit of compassionate fundraising from home using Zooms, etc. And if you don't feel that you can stretch to that, then what about some conscious shopping? Just be aware of what you're doing, be aware of the planet, be aware of what are you lifting off those shelves and putting into your shopping trolley, and begin to teach those young ones around us that they also have to be conscious of our earth and our Mother Earth and all the beings and creatures and humans that we share our planet with.
What are you eating? What are you putting into your body? You know?
Yeah. And maybe we'll end up with a much better planet and a much better society.
Well, the food you're eating, what energy is it holding? You know.
Yeah.
What way is it affecting you yourself?
Yeah, and like Pippa and all of those huge organizations, they're all there and they're waiting for us to step up to the mark and to be those people, you know, that are going to say, look, maybe today I can make even a tiny little difference.
Every little counts.
Every little counts. So thank you all for having us. Thanks for letting us share this space with you. I hope we've maybe said something that might help with this situation where animals are concerned. And we just, from Ireland, want to wish everybody happy Christmas and a really safe and positive new year. Yeah. Thank you all for having us. Thank you.
Have a good Christmas.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elaine and Joe. That's beautiful. Thank you very much. Now, our final speaker, I'd just like to give you a little introduction, actually, because today is the midwinter solstice. At least it is still here in the United Kingdom. And there's a very extraordinarily rare astronomical event, which is the great conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn. And so I've noticed that in the press, in the popular media, this has become really widely talked about now, even with the Times newspaper putting a headline saying, "Is this the return of the Star of Bethlehem?" Now, with regards to the Star of Bethlehem, as the story goes, the three kings, the three wise men traveled because they saw the star, and they traveled to Bethlehem to witness and be present at the birth of Christ. Now, one of the skill sets attributed to the wise men was astrology as well as astronomy. And so our next speaker, Barry Down, is an astrologer, but Barry's particular astrological skill set or passion really is more of the spiritual interpretation or study of the spiritual aspects of the symbolism contained in the astrological archetypes and science. So it gives me great pleasure to hand over to our next speaker, Barry Down. Thank you, Barry, all yours.
Thank you, Shane. That's really, really spot on introduction. Thank you. And thank you to all the other speakers. It's really the lovely expression about doing the small things. In terms of the what we can do, there's that little story about the hummingbird and the forest fire. And the forest fire was raging and all the animals took refuge in the river. And the hummingbird picked up one droplet of water, flew over the fire and dropped it on the fire. And the animals said, well, what good is that going to do? And the hummingbird said, well, I did my bit. And if we all created the rain, then there is no small effort. Every effort counts. And in the modern world, the Western way of thinking, there's been a huge disconnection between nature and ourselves as human beings and who we are in nature. And I know that a lot of people who are listening now, will be familiar with the terminology of astrology, but my presentation now will be to keep it very simple, and I hope you'll bear with me with that. And the interest for me is the fundamentals of the spiritual lesson of who we are as human beings. And one of the things that I say to when I'm asked to speak sometimes is, in astrology, if I don't know the birth or the circumstance of a baby, I've never met them, I don't know where they are, and an auntie or an uncle will come to me and say, oh, this baby, I've got a nephew or a niece and they were born at this particular time. Can you do their horoscope? And I'll go, okay, we'll do that. So with no connection whatsoever, I can look at there's other astrologers and look at the positions of where the planets were at that location of that birth at that particular time and describe the character and the personality of that baby as that baby grows and becomes an adult and lives their life's journey. And I can discern that from the position of those planets. Now, the question it begets there is, well, who is that baby? And that baby is every one of us, every human being, every sentient being on the planet. So if that baby is an expression of those positions and angles and energies represented by those planets, then as human beings, there is a physical representation that every human being on this planet and every being on this planet is an expression of the heavens and the heavenly bodies and their energies. And it's made manifest. It has come from that consciousness, that baby has come from the great unmanifest into the physical world and is a physical representation of the conversation of those planets. And in astrology, we give the names of the traditional games. Many cultures have different names according to their culture and paradigm. But in the Western astrology, we give the names of the gods: Venus, Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto, and so on, to describe the qualities of the vibration as represented by those planets. Now, there are many ways of discussions on, well, how can this happen? You know, what is the connection between the physical world and these planetary bodies? But I'm not going to go into that now, it'd take too long. But well, like I've said, when a birth occurs, one can describe and discern this personality. So I say one way of looking at astrology is that if the gods were sat round a table, Venus, Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto, and so on, and they were having a conversation, what would that conversation be about? And so if we have Venus and Jupiter and Saturn, for instance, as an example, Venus, the goddess of beauty and arts and attraction, would naturally be coming from that perspective. Saturn, old age, wisdom, father time, would be a little bit serious, a bit practical, a bit philosophical maybe. And if we throw in Jupiter, shall we throw in Neptune there? The god of the sea, the mystic, you know, the otherworldliness. So what would he be talking to when he spoke to Saturn and Venus? Well, if it was in an air sign like Libra, it would be air. So it would probably be music that travels through air. It would be beautiful, because Venus would be talking about beauty and art. So it would be a beautiful piece of music. If it was old age, what would Saturn say? Well, he probably quite liked something that was wistful and melancholic. And Neptune would say, well, let's put some mystery in there. You know, would it be the flow, ebb and flow of the tides in the ocean? Now, I had a lady who had this combination in her chart. And I said to her, what music do you like? I said, do you like Debussy? I don't know if people are familiar with Debussy, which is melancholic, beautiful, and mysterious. And so those three energies coming together were having a conversation. So if that conversation is made manifest as a human being at a point in time, and you're saying, oh, look at these planetary positions, we are celestial beings. We are conversations of the gods. And there is no small droplet. We are a much bigger thing, a much bigger stream of consciousness. And this in the modern world is one way of looking at astrology. Now I look at the, another point is the animal kingdom. Now, if we look at most people know their sun sign, whether you're a Leo or a Taurus or, or Virgo. And but we also know there's an animal associated with that sign, which is a totem animal. Now, one clue to reading astrology is to look at the behavior of that particular animal, of that sign. Yeah. So if you're a Sagittarius, let's go. Let's go and have a look here. Let's gallop across the plains. Let's have some curiosity. And as Elaine and Joel say, you try and put a bridle on a horse, and it'll throw its head up, snort, and kick its feet in the air and gallop away. Well, Sagittarians will do that. Yeah. Gemini's the monkey. The monkey, inquisitive, into everything, intelligent, what's going on, exploring all the time, into everything. Cheeky monkey, that's Gemini, the monkey kingdom. So if you look at the characteristics of the animal kingdom and look at it and relate it into a human terms of that particular sign that you're born under, it'll give you a clue to some of your own characteristics. It obviously becomes more complex as, goes into it, but this is the basics. So what does that say? It says that as human beings, we have a connection with our animal totem. And Indigenous people know this. This is where they celebrate them in dance and dress and form, to get themselves closer to the understanding of their totem animal. Now, we in the Western world can do the same thing. Look at that, say, well, I'm a Sagittarius, or I'm a Leo, or I'm an Aries. What connections do I have as a celestial being, with my animal totem? And so therefore I am a stream of consciousness and have an intimate connection. And what I'm talking about here is a practical illustration that we are sitting in our chairs or going about our daily business. We're walking that talk. We are as celestial beings. We are walking in the consciousness of the animal kingdom. And this is a reconnection that we must all come to. And come to understand. And this is one way and a path. And this morning, speaking from the heart is, and the heart path is been mentioned so much. So we look, the heart is the seat, is seen in many traditions as the seat of love and feeling. Love is the connection with all things. If we wish to connect with our totem animal, bring love, the feeling of love, into our heart and project that forward to the animal. That animal, I will guarantee, will respond to you and come to you. And a rather amusing incident that when I was doing these meditations many, many years ago, and I thought, well, I wonder if I can feel love to something that's completely alien to me, like an insect, that's so different from my human form. So I sat on I happened to be sitting on a chair, and I saw this, what we have here is a cicadas that which sort of make a sign of some of these sort of beetles that rattle their wings, and it's a really, and this cicada was sat on the side of the chair, and I thought, I'm going to do this. So I raised the feeling of love in my heart, and I projected it to that insect, and the cicada just made one sudden leap and leapt straight onto my forehead. And I thought, it made me jump, as a lot of people will be when an insect jumps on them. And I thought, well, of course it's going to come to you. You communicated with it. And that's how we communicate with nature, is to raise that feeling in our hearts. Now, I come from a Kabbalistic tradition, and a study and an interest of the Tree of Life. Now, in the Tree of Life, there are 10 spheres, and each of those spheres has a planet associated with it. And each of those spheres has a particular quality, and it is the archetypal quality of that planet. This is a very simplistic form. Now, at the beginning, if we go back into philosophy and we say, what existed before everything? The great nothingness, the great void. And in that great void, there was a state of becoming, but there was nothing but a state. Something happened, a state of becoming. And that is represented by the planet Pluto. And that planet is like the soul coming from the unmanifest. The soul starts a journey, it becomes. So it's a very powerful planet. It sits on that threshold between the unmanifest and the manifest. So that journey begins, but it hasn't got any form. It's just a state of becoming. But in that state of becoming, you have a feeling of movement, a line of movement, but it doesn't have any form, but it's just movement, it's dynamic. And we hear in the modern world, particularly amongst the spiritual community, the divine masculine, the idea of dynamism, of moving. But it has no form. So in order to understand that, something has to give that dynamism form. And what gives form, but the feminine, creates the child, the form. So you can only understand that concept of the soul coming into being, by putting those three together, because you can't. They naturally come together. Yeah. So becoming in time, the soul journey. So you have the divine masculine and the divine feminine. So the unity of the soul coming from the unmanifest divided into two, but then they fell in love and they were attracted to each other, and love was born. The goddess of attraction is Venus, relationships. She attracts, she pulls together. It's the goddess of love. So in that attraction, love was born. And the divine feminine on the Kabbalistic tree of life is the head of the feminine pillar. And that's ruled by Saturn, the great form giver. And so symbols of Saturn and the divine feminine is Mary and Isis, who holds the child. And what better symbol of unconditional love is a mother looking at in the face of a newborn baby. And I say to people who, if you wish to connect with unconditional love, imagine you're holding a newborn baby in your hands and it's your child, because everybody experiences this. It may even be an animal that you feel that unconditional love. But there is your pathway, and bring that up and connect with the natural world, and all will come to you. Yeah. And in this great conjunction that we have now, in the astrology is very consistent with what's happening in the world, is Pluto, the soul, the one that sits on the threshold. He changes everything into a new form, a new beginning. So in the astrology at the moment, Saturn conjuncted, or it came together with Pluto. And I said to myself, well, how can Saturn be changed forever? To change from one form to the other. Well, in astrology, Saturn is known as Father Time. He's traditionally the father and the old man. And I thought, well, how can this change? How can Pluto change this from one state to another? And I came back, I thought, this is the birth of the divine feminine, of the mother, the primal giver of form. And so the divine feminine is Saturn rules the age of Aquarius. It's a co-ruler. And so it's the Saturn in the form of the divine feminine. So the old patriarchy in the new age now, by the transformation of Pluto, has stepped aside, and the feminine form is now taken the throne. And this is what's happening astrologically. And Jupiter has come there too, and he's the great benefit. And foundation stones were always laid in medieval times under the influence of Jupiter and Saturn, because you had the idea of crystallization, and you had the idea of the great benefit, the king in a happy kingdom, the great benefit, the great nurturing, and so on. So this is the idea, what we've had now. So how does Jupiter manifest the energy of the source, Pluto, the soul journey? So it gives a foundation of a new way of being, a new form, a new expansion, a new love. And Saturn, those three planets have come together. So it's from the source, the state of becoming, love and nurturing. Jupiter has been given form by Saturn, the great mother. And this and Saturn and Jupiter have come together in the beginnings of Aquarius, which is the new beginning of the Aquarian age. So it's the foundation stone of the expression of humanity, community. These are the qualities of Aquarius, the air sign. And these conjunctions will continue now for the next 200 years. And they will happen in the different signs. It will be Gemini, which is about communication, Mercury and communication. And then it'll be in Libra, relationships, the sign of Venus, the other being. So these great foundation stones is the communication of humanity and community in relation to other beings and other things in the universe. So it's an incredibly powerful time now, a new beginning. And given what an overview which I've expressed on who we are as divine and celestial beings, and it's there, written in our stars, and we are all shining of the one light. And I use the image of a stained glass window, that those different positions of the planets on the birth of that baby is like a stained glass window. All the different colors, all the different planets make a particular picture. But behind that picture is lit by one light, like a prism. Through one light splits into many colors. One light shines through that stained glass window of every human being. Every individual is an expression. So allow that light to come through and shine through who each of us are as the hummingbird, as the individual, and focus our consciousness on the unity, which is the age of Aquarius will bring us to understand. And so the animal kingdom for me is saying, remember our connection. We are all one stream of consciousness that divides into a rainbow, and together we make that rainbow. You know, and come from your heart. That's what's been spoken, and that's really what I'd like to share with everybody.
Barry, thank you so much. I remember when approaching each of you that one of the things that drew us all together is the understanding we're coming together in the spirit of universal love. Universal meaning for all creation. Well, first of all, I'd like to say thank you to all of the speakers for absolutely wonderful presentations. And we've had a few questions that have come in, and I'd like to put the first one to TeRangimarie, please. And this is from Kevin Pryor. Please excuse me if I'm not pronouncing your surname properly there, Kevin. And Kevin asks, he'd like to ask you, TeRangimarie, if you think that the message from the animals relates at all to the prophecies of the blue and red star Kachinas, and if those events have any correlation to the Great Conjunction.
I would, I've been given from the grandfathers and grandmothers right here, yes. There is a great connection between the blue star Kachina and the red star, and you know, in the Hopi prophecies, they called that this conjunction would happen. They didn't know when, and we wouldn't know whether it's that now, but it's through action of humanity that we come together on this one-hearted path. So yes, and no.
Would you be able to describe to people who aren't familiar what the blue and red star Kachinas represent, please, and what the origins of that tradition is?
I know that much about the blue star Kachina, and from what I do remember, it comes from the Hopi prophecies, and I certainly am not a carrier of the Hopi prophecies, but I've heard many of the story, and from what I remember is the blue star Kachina, when the arrival of the blue star Kachina was a calling of a change of time, for people to be prepared for time of change, time of purification. And that they weren't just talking about human people, they were talking about all the peoples, animals included, that to watch for that path. And when the blue star Kachina would shine in the sky, it was a reminder that a new change was coming, and to be prepared. Be prepared to walk and purify and walk on that one-hearted path again. I'm not familiar with the red star Kachina, so I can't answer for that one. But I know it was there somewhere. And the those origin stories were origin stories of the Hopi in Arizona. So acknowledgement to those keepers of the Hopi prophecy.
Thank you very much. I have another question for you from Lucas. And I think this may be Lucas. I think it's a he. Please excuse me if I'm wrong. It says, I love how you say swim in the sky. Thank you for sharing your stories. How can we learn more of the one-hearted path?
I From what I have learned over the years and the stories that have been shared with me by many different elders across the nations, is our one-hearted path is coming back, and we've all collectively been saying that, it's come back to a place of community and come back to remembering our deep connection with all things and finding that unconditional path for us. And that's another name for the one-hearted path, is to stay focused and to work together on all levels with our creatures and all the plants that are around us. And there are many things out there to look at. There are many stories online. We've got connected with Google, and there are some beautiful stories that are shared through different nations. Hopi have a great story. And many of their stories, if you want to link into those, and First Nations people. You know, I mentioned in the beginning that the Creator offered a space for the red-hearted people, and that was that their responsibility was on a spiritual path to take care of Mother Earth, and that's where their origins of the one-hearted path was, to make sure that we all came together and took care of our responsibility. It's a shorter version of a really long version. Thank you.
I think this is the great task ahead of humanity at this time, isn't it, really, to accept more responsibility for how we interact with the natural world around us.
Yes.
So I would like to say to anybody who's watching this, whether live or the recording of this, this wonderful sharing this evening, is we would like to invite people from all traditions, all spiritual traditions, religious backgrounds, or non-religious backgrounds, people involved in practical work, like, for instance, Pippa's charity, World Animal Protection, or any of the other wonderful charities that are working tirelessly in their own unique ways to address the many problems that we've created, us human beings. And we speak directly to those people who relate to the subject matter that we are sharing today, that we're all engaged in discussing amongst each other in this way, about the spiritual sanctity of the animal kingdom and of the spirit, the great spirit of nature. And if this is something that you relate to in your heart very deeply, then please do reach out to us and communicate with us, because we would like to welcome people from all different traditions if they feel that they have something of value that they would like to share from now moving forward, because we will be having more of these kinds of events throughout the coming years. And one of the things I personally would love to see develop with this is an expansion of this dialogue that we're having in this relatively small group of people, but really quite an international group of people we have assembled here. And I would like to encourage the speakers as well to consider, now that you've begun this dialogue, to continue to speak in this way to the people who you feel are open and receptive, and those people who already have a connection strongly with the spirit of the natural world, and encourage them to begin to speak more boldly about this. I feel very strongly that the more people who engage in this kind of a dialogue about this subject, and the more people who actively, decisively choose to reach out from their hearts and reconnect with the spirit of everything living, that this is the great unifier of humanity. It transcends all religion, all cultural or political differences. It's the great unifier. And so the more people who connect in this way, consciously and decisively, I feel that great healing can begin to take place in the world. So I feel we have a responsibility, as been spoken of earlier, by all of our speakers in their own unique ways. So I think we have another question coming in here, and I'd just like to maybe, yes, we do. We have somebody here, Mario. And this is a question. Thank you, Mario, for your question and for your presence. And the question is for you, Barry. Excuse me. And Mario says, I perceive this moment as very confused and violent. I feel that we are all on the brink of an international emergency. And I'm not referring to COVID, maybe a great war. I can perceive it. What is your opinion? He says, I am a Taurus, Leo. Thank you.
Oh, hello, Mario. Yes.
Let's try to keep this reasonably brief, if we could, please.
Yeah. The what is happening globally? When I talked about Pluto, Saturn, and Jupiter, it's Pluto as the soul journey. It also carries all the soul carries with it lots of experiences from past lives. It's eternal. And what we're experiencing now is Jupiter is opening up a knowledge of that path, and those actions which have been set in motion in the past are now being revealed, in our physical day-to-day consciousness. This is Capricorn, which is happened in the sign of Capricorn. So this is why it's been very real for a lot of people. So a lot of people have had a very deep self-examination, and not just on a personal level, but on the global level too. And this is a time of reckoning. The fact that Jupiter is a benefic will bring a benefic knowledge and energy in, which will be crystallized by the energy of Saturn. It's just moved into the sign of Aquarius, which is humanitarianism, connection with community. So it's almost like, well, look at the deeds of the past and learn from them. The COVID situation has actually said, everybody go to your room and be quiet. That's Saturn. Pluto and Jupiter said, in that quietude, reflect and come to some sort of understanding. So we're being presented politically in the world with this scenario. And so it's in that contemplation that the answers will naturally become. Jupiter Pluto is intuition and just a natural knowing that'll come. So although it appears as crisis now, but the focus is look at your own inner light, bring that inner light forward. You are the light that shines through the stained glass window, as we all are, but that stained glass window is the blue planet. And see that image, and the energy goes where focus goes. So avoid going down the rabbit hole of what is the crumbling of the old system and the old structure. It always appears, when something is breaking down, if you're in it, it appears catastrophic, but the phoenix rises from the ashes. So, and to do that is connect yourself with your heart and spread that around you and see that around you, and that will have a snowball effect. And I understand you as a Taurian will be very grounded. I've got a lot of Capricorn. It doesn't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing. So you make it happen in our hearts, and that will create it in the world.
Thank you so much, Barry. That's absolutely wonderful. I would say that the very theme of what we're speaking about the spiritual sanctity of the animal kingdom and of all life, is all well and good, but it means nothing unless we set them in action in the real world. It's just fanciful talk otherwise. And what we want to do is to inspire people to choose differently, to make different choices, to live more responsibly, and to conduct ourselves more wisely and with care and compassion toward everything else which has a right to live on this same planet that we do. So I'd like to pass over, please, to Pippa. And I know I'm springing this on you, Pippa, but because your work is of a very practical nature, what can you recommend to people to begin to do to make a difference? In what ways can people get involved more practically to make a difference?
Yeah, thank you, Jean. I think Elaine actually gave some great examples also in when she was talking, and I was reflecting on something I'd said in the last meeting as well. So definitely that point about the conscious shopping, I think, is so important, because actually through our purchasing decisions, we can have a huge influence and can really influence, you know, supermarkets, big corporates, local restaurants, local pubs. I remember once I was in a local pub and pre-COVID, asking where the meat was from, and the waiter just looked at me like I was mad, and he was like, "What? You want me to go and find out what butcher it is?" And I said, "Yes." And then he did, and he obviously went into the kitchen and he came back, and it was actually from a very high welfare source. And I said, "You see, you know, actually you should be promoting that. That is like a really positive thing in your pub." And he was kind of quite humbled by the end. But it's because no one had asked that question before. So I think we all need to speak out. We all need to ask about, you know, we need to draw other people's attention to these things, because quite often other people just aren't actually aware, and they're just not thinking. It's not, I mean, one thing I found is that when you start digging into a bit about what people think about animals, it doesn't take long for them to realize, you know, that sentience and that, you know, that they are another being. And it just takes actually the start of a conversation to make, you know, make people think. So I definitely think that's a good one. Of course, I know there's loads of petitions around, but they do make a difference. So like I said, our G20 petition, we had over 1 million signatures to that. And actually our colleagues took that to each G20 leader, to various ministers within the G20. And we got some really, really positive feedback from people, you know, leading those countries. So we didn't get to where we wanted to, but it's the start, and it does make a difference. And then I think Elaine mentioned fundraising, but really spreading the word. I mean, that's the thing that comes through really strongly to me. Obviously, in communications, but I do think that we all do need to speak out about this to our friends, to our colleagues, to, like I said, you know, to people when we're shopping, and only by us all speaking openly about it, actually, and having the confidence to speak about it, can we really make a difference.
Thank you, Pippa. Now time's pressing on. We've been on this call for nearly 2.25 hours now, and the time flies by. So I'd like to thank all of our speakers for taking the time to share in such beautiful and heartfelt ways about this subject. So I'd like to thank Pippa, Rodger, TeRangimarie Carter, Elaine and Joe Duffy, Earl Charters, Barry Down, and also to Pat Brown Wolf and to Guy Red Owl as well. And also, last but not least, to James Fearnley. And thank you all so much. And on behalf of all the friends of the Light of the Animal Kingdom, I'd like to wish you all a very Merry Christmas and a far better 2021. Lots of love to you all. Have a wonderful Christmas.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.